brought us some of the most significant upgrades we've seen in 2023. I mean, huge upgrades from AlphaTauri, huge upgrades from McLaren, and significant stuff from other teams. But the real teams that we saw benefit there might not benefit in Japan. New upgrades coming in Japan, but don't expect them to be as significant as they have here in Singapore. Let's talk about the teams with the biggest upgrades coming here. These are obviously expected, so we don't know the full extent of things, but for McLaren is the first team we're going to start off with. For McLaren, they're actually bringing that set of upgrades that they brought for Lando Norris. More is now coming for Oscar Piastri's car. They've done this a lot in the season. They brought this kind of 1-2 upgrades within like a 2 Grand Prix succession. So what are those upgrades that are being brought? Well, these are confirmed, and I can give you in full detail for the McLaren upgrades what is coming. The revised floor is coming for Oscar Piastri. As you can see, the old and the new with the new rings over it, which Red Bull already has. They're bringing this new upper element to the floor to kind of just split the drag and really give it a more aero efficient car. The actual side pod itself is going to look a lot like the Aston Martin from the beginning. It's going to have a lot more of that curve. I will show you now a picture that is a lot closer. Now look at this. It is very, very, very similar to the Aston Martin. It is a revised upgrade to what they brought in Austria, and this is now coming to Piastri as well. The new beautiful wing, in my opinion, I think it looks very slick. Obviously, a copy, I guess you can say, from the Aston Martin and the Mercedes. That is now also coming to the Japan Grand Prix because they confirmed with Lando Norris's pace that this is a more significant upgrade to the car. Now, this upgrade, already confirmed through qualifying and kind of what we saw in the race, is a 4/10 upgrade. It really is significant to their slow corner speed. Now, here's the thing. A big test will be here in Japan. Did they keep that high to medium speed really downforce? Now, the car showed in through practices that their actual pace, like with DRS and top speed, was not reduced by much. So hopefully they sustained a good high medium speed and now pretty good slow speed for the McLaren car, making them practically top 2 contenders up there with Mercedes, because Aston has fallen a little bit behind in their development, but something is expected to come for Aston here. We'll talk about that later in the video. Next team expected to be bringing upgrades here is Alfa Romeo. Now, they just brought something in Singapore that is supposed to be significant for Japan, but they have more upgrades coming here in Japan to make the car better and more in unison. It's just really finishing touches to the car. These upgrades are supposed to only enhance the floor that they have kind of brought, the floor and what they've brought to the back of the car. The rear and the floor is completely revised from before. They're one of the only teams that does have the side pod design going to the back, but they don't have a confirmed slide pod or like a water slide effect or a double splitter like the Red Bull. So we could see some upgrades to the side pod, but nothing is yet confirmed when it comes to that. We just know that upgrades and parts are coming here for Suzuka. Other upgrades to note, Mercedes will be bringing some parts here. As I said, they're already working on the W15, and some interesting news that came out was that Ted Kravitz actually talked to Toto Wolff about the W15, and when spoken to about it, Toto Wolff wasn't as enthusiastic as he usually is. Apparently, right now, the rumor is that they have to completely scrap the idea that they've had and start from fresh. This is not good signs if you're a Mercedes fan, and in general for the sport. I don't want Mercedes falling back. They seem like the only contender for RB19. Now, these are being talked about. Is this going to be a full conundrum? I don't think so yet. Let's see what happens. I mean, there's a lot still till 2024. They have a lot to work off of. I don't think they're going to fully scrap everything. But bringing in a new chassis is a big thing. So obviously the upgrades that they've brought to the car have worked in a certain part, but they're not to that Red Bull part. And we know that Red Bull's only going to get faster considering what's happening. I mean, maybe this TD floor directive hurt them more than we thought considering how this performance went, but let's see. A lot still more to talk about. Red Bull not bringing anything, maybe a couple more revisions. That floor did not work out actually there in Singapore, so are they looking to revise some more things on the floor? I'm not sure. We'll have to see the extent of it for really Japan, because even Max says, let's wait for Japan to see what happens. By the way, also support on the channel has been insane, so I wanted to thank you all personally. It means the world seeing this type of numbers and the subscribers. It really means a lot, genuinely. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe or like the video. That would mean the world, as I said. Thank you so much. let's get into the last two teams, which are bringing the significant parts to the Japan GP. So the last teams are Ferrari and Aston Martin, will be talked about later. Let's talk about Ferrari first. So all they brought in Singapore was a revised front wing that was already used in the beginning of the season. Their front wing is closest resembled to the Red Bull, as how the airflow goes through the front wing to the back. Now they were a team that was specifically talked about here to not have any issues with either TD directive. So maybe they really did benefit off of that the most, because that Red Bull looked very unstable, that Ferrari looked pretty planted. Now, Sector 1 is probably going to be a big struggle for Ferrari because they've struggled with a lot of wind resistance, and that's a lot of high speed and medium speed. It's probably not going to suit their car that well, but their last upgrade package is coming here to Japan, because we know in COTA nothing else is coming, and from then on they're not testing really anything else. Upgrades haven't been big for the car, but we do expect stuff to be coming to be testing for their new, apparently Red Bull style car. With Red Bull side pods, they already kind of got the philosophy going, but in general they're trying to make this car more towards the Red Bull philosophy. Maybe that's a change of suspension. That is what is rumored currently, that the front suspension is completely changing on the car and the philosophy. So let's see how much more they're leaning into this. Apparently the front wing, everything they've brought from before is tests for the new car up until COTA, obviously. So let's see, maybe another pole position. I don't think so, but we'll have to see. Last team that I wanted to note on was Aston Martin. Now they do have expected upgrades, and they have expected upgrades all the way up until practically Brazil. That is what's being talked about, that they are bringing a lot to this car. Now, they are the team that, in my opinion, has gotten this upgrade system wrong. Alpine did it last year. They're doing the exact same mistake. They're bringing small parts per each Grand Prix. They only had big parts in Canada, and in Canada, it took them in a certain direction. Now, they're bringing different revisions to the car. They tried the shark fin out here in Singapore. I wonder if they're going for the shark fin here in Japan. They were actually solid in Zandvoort. Zandvoort is probably pretty closely resembled to Japan, so maybe they're strong here. Their drag is reduced, but their balance is kind of thrown off. The rears of the car kind of flare up. That's their biggest issue that they've had throughout the 2023 season since the Canada GP. So there have been rumored upgrades as they're trying to revise their side pod problem and the undercut that they have. Continuously, they keep bringing new floor parts, and they had a rear deflector part in the Singapore GP. They need to get work on putting actual heat into their tires, which is supposed to be coming for the 2024 car. I'll be mentioning 2024 cars now pretty often in these upgrade videos, because that is kind of the direction that we're going into. It's what to be expected for their new cars. And Aston says they're already working on the new car since a long time ago, and everything now is a test, which it kind of looks like. They're bringing parts that are necessarily parts that they've already used in the Grand Prix, but what combination is working best with which floor, with which engine cover, which rear wing, what is working best for the Aston Martin car. So a lot to expect for 2024. Japan should be bringing some parts, but don't expect this to be a Singapore. So let me know your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.